This is the first tutorial. It's on a hardy orchids, I think. It's filmed over about 4 months. Can I just make it clear? It's not my intention to shock or offend anyone. So if you're of a easily shocked disposition, don't watch it, because I make these things as I would talk to anybody that was in the potting shed that worked for me or whatever. I can't do it any other way. I can't be all smiley and TV presentery about it. So it's quite raw. Some years ago, we discovered by accident one of the best, probably one of the more unusual ways of propagating quite a rare plant, the dactylorhiza fuchsiae, the hardy orchids. I can never remember whether it's a bee orchid or a... Shut up, bloody pigeons. A bee orchid or a marsh orchid. I'll have to caption it because I get them mixed up. However, over the years we found that we have them in a shade house or amongst other plants around the back in like a hospital area or a plant or a place where we just keep plants. We find that they propagate themselves into the tops of pots. Trying them from their seed is actually quite difficult. It's a bit of a faff on. I don't know why that should be. Division is very good, but you've got to wait a few years. So wherever I have a group of plants now, we just drop a few of these dactylorhiza. These little pots came from exactly that situation, and that's what I'm going to show you today. Up in the border, now we only planted this up, if you remember, a few months back, 2 or 3 months ago. The dactylorhiza have done very, very well. Obviously, if we are growing them deliberately by accident, so to speak, they're going to be variable because the seed growth is, well, it's just going to be variable. You can see some of them have speckles. Nearly all of them are light pink in flower. The foliage is just as beautiful as the plant, and it's there all the time. But there's one that came out much, much deeper pink. That's this one. I'm quite impressed with that. I think that's a lovely, lovely, stronger colour. The speckling on the leaf isn't quite as pronounced. But it's one of the interesting things that happens when you grow things from seed. This is one of the a year older plants, so it gives you a much better idea of what they can be like. They grow much more powerful and a thicker set plant, but it's quite happy under here. Again, this one has a lot of speckles on it. Now, if I was to divide this, I would maybe put the divisions for a year or two amongst a group of plants somewhere else and just let nature take its course. I've found over the years it's where it is ever possible to try and let nature do the work for you. Now, there was something along here I noticed. Yeah. Now, this was a plant that was round the back of one of the polytunnels where Lisa was putting some plants a year or two back. And there coming out of there is a dactylorizer. And this happened all the time. And well, let's get the machete out. You'll see what I mean. Yeah, well, we'll fart around with it and see what's best. First lesson. This is a pot, and in that pot is a Thalictrum delavei, I believe. Probably album. I've got no glasses on. So, there's the Thalictrum. And I have the rather fortunate occurrence that also in this pot, self-sown, are some dactyloriza, which are considerably more expensive than the, oh, there's an old nettle one. Sorry, an old thistly thing. Let's get rid of that. Considerably more expensive than the actual Thalictrum. So, what I need to do is to get this out, separate it off, and pot up these little dactyloriza. They're a Dactyloriza fuchsiae, is a type of wild orchid. You've seen it before. Lovely speckled leaves, and it is very easy if you put it amongst other things, particularly if they're in pots or in a glass house or polytunnel or somewhere like that, or a shade house preferably. They're not really glass house or polytunnel plants unless you're overwintering them. If you have them in that sort of situation, you will find if you let them flower and seed around that you will get them all over the place. They are quite the little breeders, which is very good, because to try and cultivate them or propagate them yourself is actually proves quite difficult. They're just one of those plants that's best left to get by its own devices. It just does well, and if it feels it's in a natural situation, it goes like hell. The Thalictrum's not heavily rooted. You can see there's not a lot of root in it. The first thing we need to do is get out any weed. Don't want that, don't want that. See the mossy stuff on the back. And I'm a great believer in separation rather than cutting, so I'm going to try and just push my thumbs down into the pot until I hear something sort of break. You get a sense that we've got a bit of Thalictrum there. Now, commercially, I could pot that little bit of Thalictrum up into another small pot. But what I'm after here, really, is the dactyloriza. There's another one. To buy these commercially, if you can find them wholesale, is actually really quite difficult. They are very hard to come by because they're quite specialist. Or it's one of them things that's probably made to look more specialist than it actually is. All you need to do is grow them naturally and let them seed themselves. Right. There's the Thalictrum. I don't think we'll fuck about propagating that. They're not the only pots that I had. There are some of Lisa's crocosmia she had hidden away. And here you can see they're growing in there. And that one. So it's the same process really. The crocosmia was relatively newly potted, so I'm just going to try and work my fingers down into there. One of these little dactyloriza is probably worth twice as much as the crocosmia. And so if I have to lose a bit of the crocosmia, well, so be it. I'm not even sure what variety it is because it's just got a label with Lisa written on it. So Goodness knows what it is. It'll be something that she's taking a fancy to. I know this looks like a lot of farting about, but believe me, it's worth it. These things are lovely and they grow in places where a lot of the stuff won't grow. There. Now we've got a little bit of the sort of tuberous root here. You can see here. I'm going to try and keep that bit of crappy old soil and crocosmia chain. There's a bit of crocosmia on that. I'll stick that back in the pot. I'm going to try and keep it together because you know the little fibrous roots are going to be quite happy if you can do that. Now I'll just turn it around and get to the other one. I'm going to just get a start by working my knife. I don't like cutting, but I'm glad the camera is sideways on because I am pulling some awful grimacing faces while I'm doing this. And as with my age, that's better. Whenever I pull or push or puff at anything, if you're over 60, you'll know what I mean. You're puffing and pulling and blowing at something, and you live in mortal fear of the unintended fart. Especially on camera, I don't want 10,000 people watching me break wind. And I'm sure nobody out there wants to watch that either. One thing I've often said over the years is when you have things that are seed grown, they're not complete copies of the parent plant. They're not clones. This is quite important. And I'll probably repeat it lots and lots in the course of these sort of tutorial type videos. But this is a good example. This is a seedling from these Dactylorhiza. And you can see with these Dactylorhiza, you want the really nice spotted leaves because they are an added feature. There, see? I'm hoping that stuck up the camera because it's just on a thing. Now, if you look at this, see if I can come round behind the camera, you can see there's very few speckles on that. That will have been potted on. Don't get me wrong, it's a fine plant in its own right, and the flower is interesting and it grows in shade and all those other qualities. It doesn't have to find speckles, so in a sense we're roguing it out. And you can see there's another pot here that has, again, crocosmia. I suspect these were where Lisa had hidden some away, and they've just got covered in seeds and they've germinated. Over the winter, I planted a few smaller pots out in the garden. So we'll have a wander up. I don't know what the date is today. It's Easter Monday, so I suppose it's about 18th, 19th of April. Let's go and have a look and see if we can see any of the ones that we planted in the winter coming through. Well, I can see them from here. There's one at the back there. So we'll keep an eye on that one for its flower. That's an erythronium. Speckledy leaf, Erythronium dense canis, dog's tooth violet. That's nice. Let's have a little wander up. I thought that was one for a minute, but it's a scabby old hellebore leaf. I'm sure I thought I planted about half a dozen. Oh yeah, there's a couple there just poking their little heads through. And there's another one. So they're coming through quite well. Yeah, there's 2 or 3 more there. 3, 4. So there's probably quite a lot. One of the things about having a nursery has always been the the little self-seeds that you get. This is actually a hosta called Moonlight, and it's just an old one that's got left to one side, and through here you can see all the young buds. I could separate these off into single pots if I wanted, but I'm not doing that. However, in there again are a few Dactylorhiza. There's 2 or 3 in there. Also a little birch seedling. Now what I'll do with this, I'll keep this, and then later in the year we'll graft in a piece. This is just a seedling. I'm not sure what it is. It'll just be Utilis Jackmontii or something like that. Just a seedling. Maybe it's I don't know. Could be anything. But we'll take a nice piece of one of the really white ones and we'll graft it in, and I'll show you how that's done. But we might as well use anything natural that comes up. The whole point of these tutorials is to make propagation and the growing of our plants accessible and easy. There's always much more complicated ways of doing things. We don't want to get into meristems and microculture and anything like that. We just want to know how to grow some of the more interesting plants. And a lot of it is by division. If you're careful at the right time, you can just you can just increase things. There's no point increasing things that are easy to buy, but we want to attack some of the more interesting stuff. I'll try and keep the I'm not worried about losing a little bit of hosta, so I am going to make a cut in here to get a start. We'll try and keep the birch together as best we can. What I'm trying to do is just open this up. There we are. I'm happy with that. So there's a bit of hosta there that we can take that bud off, and we'll just try and get as much of this birch together as possible. Probably put this into a slightly larger pot in a while. I'm just trying to keep as much of the root together as possible. I'll just put that to one side for now. It doesn't have to thrive this year, it just has to remain as it is, and then we can use it later on. There's nothing lost on that. Now, here we go. We've got down into the, you can see the roots of the tops of the little hostas. I want to try and preserve those as much as possible. And then if we can just work our fingers in. There. They come away quite easily. All sorts in this pot. I suspect it's just been chucked around the back for a few years, probably intending to do something with it, but it never got done. There's always lots and lots of stuff like that, and then you get these little surprises. There. There we are. Not much root on that piece, but I think it'll be all right. And 2, 3, a tiny little one there, 4, 5, 6. There you are. And this is the hosta Moonlight, which we'll just divide. I'm not so worried about that. It'll let it grow anywhere. You can grow out your arse if you put them in there. So there we are. Again, these hostas I could divide right down into single little stems, but to be honest, I don't like moonlight. It's a bit of a boring fucker, if I'm honest. So we'll just put a little bit of the old soil back in, the old compost, a bit of new stuff. We'll put these moonlight chunks back in. There you go, go in there, you went around the bugger. We'll grow it on. Probably send it over to Eggleston, send it over to old Thomas. He'll be able to, somebody will like it. You know, all these plants are, you know, these days you have to make a few quid where you can. And somebody will come in and they say, I want a nice yellow-leafed hosta with a white edge, and you say, oh, I know what I've got. Moonlight is just the job. The rooking bastard. There we are. Lisa's no better. Right, so let's see what we've got. There we are, we can just pop these next few up. So there we are, we've separated them off now. The dactylorhiza. There's about 20 there and about 7 bigger ones. And a few incidentals. The birch, a couple of weird hostas. Oh, there's 4 more little tiny dactylorhiza over there and a couple of milliums. Those are all incidentals, but the dactylorhiza, they're really worth having, because even if you don't want to give them to your friends or whatever, they are nice to have en masse in your garden, especially in a shady area. Look at that one, I will be keeping that one for sure. Beautiful speckles. Yeah. It will be a question of keeping the very, very best speckly ones, and in the future, once the clumps build up, I'll be able to divide the clumps themselves, and those will obviously be clones. Yeah, that's my chair there. I fancy myself sat in there. It's quite, I feel quite self-important. I'm still actually not sure whether I'm going to just do a weekly thing of what we've done every week, or whether I'm going to do a series of these tutorials. I will make up my mind. The tutorials take a long time, because there's no point in me just showing you how to take some cuttings. You need to see how to take the cuttings, how they grow, whether they've rooted, the success rate, and that's over a period of time. You also need to see the finished product.